You know, it isn't often I find myself so overwhelmed by a video game that I summon what little will I have left in this body to urge other people to play it. I'll say it now if you're running short of time, or if you don't want to hear me jerk off the developers for the next few minutes, but Inscryption is seriously fucking good. Way back when, in early 2018, I developed this incurable itch the first time I booted up Slay the Spire. The concept of a roguelike deck builder, where through a multitude of battles and challenges you slowly forge this completely unique collection of cards. You become intimate with its intricacies, and the run itself culminates in this climactic final showdown between you and usually that asshole with a clock. Regardless of the outcome, every run unlocks new possibilities, new archetypes, and a new way to experience the game. Eventually, if you are like me, you no-lifed the ever-living fuck out of it. You sucked every drop of enjoyment out of it as you could, leaving it a desiccated husk in your Steam library. But then the itch begins to develop. Like an incurable chronic illness you can't shake, that's forever pecking at the back of your mind, always begging for another experience equivalent to what Slay the Spire provided. Many games have tried to fill that void, but very few have succeeded. Because nothing ever really hits the same. Nothing is ever like that very first ride. So you can imagine my reaction when Inscryption was released. I was something akin to a parched man wandering a barren desert, when far in the distance the sweet shimmering seduction of an oasis appeared before me. But I've been betrayed before. So it was with cautious excitement I approached the game, paranoid that at any second the mirage would begin to dwindle and fade, that the game would slowly unravel at the seams, and I would be left a disappointed idiot for falling for it once again. But from the very first moment when you're dropped into the game, the atmosphere consumes you. The ominous creaking of wood against the wind outside, the table empty and dimly lit. Then this mysterious figure opens their eyes and forces you to play one of the most enjoyable card games in existence. The mechanics are easy to understand, the sigils are explained adequately in your trusty rulebook, and the game doesn't really leave much room for confusion. The introduction of sacrificial stones provide a lot of creative leeway in the construction of your deck. Eventually, you create these absurdly busted abominations of cards that you'll end up loving more than your own kids. And that's really one of the best feelings any kind of roguelike deck builder could offer. You know, I like to think that a good game can sustain itself over solid gameplay alone, but that's not where Inscryption stops. Music is something I want to touch upon real quick, because there are a lot of certified bops in this game. Jonas Senzel has really outdone himself here. From Death Card Cabin that sets the overall gloomy mood of the game, to the intense boss fight OSTs that go that extra mile to make fights feel a little more personal and a lot more memorable. Music plays its supporting role brilliantly. It always amplifies the experience. Never once did I feel like a track was getting repetitive, or that a track was being too intrusive to the gameplay. The game oozes with flavor, and it's clear that the developers over at Daniel Mullins have put a lot of careful thought and love into this one. It's really the little things, like cards getting minor teal highlights when they're empowered, to the little tiny shivering dance they do when they're frightened because they know they're about to be sacrificed to summon my big boy. These are the minor details that transform this game from something good to something much, much grander. The very first time you take a step back from the table, and the rest of this decrepit cabin is lit up, your world expands tenfold. You're suddenly thrust into this escape room, each interactable promising another mystery to be solved. You go back and forth between the cards in the room, slowly unraveling the dark secrets of this floating pair of eyeballs. It's at that point you begin to realize that this isn't just a card game. The characters that prod you along exude personality from their text alone, and they're perhaps one of the greatest highlights of the game. The Stoat in particular left quite an impression on me, similarities to myself aside, obviously. I have something of a love-hate relationship with this sarcastic little shit. The fact that they break the rules by speaking through their name text alludes to themes that carry much, much deeper into the adventure. It's strange. Coming in, I expected Inscryption to give me another dose of what Slay the Spire offered, and in some ways it did. But at the end of the day, while they both start at similar points, they go in completely different directions. And that's why I imagine many people felt betrayed going into the second and third sections of the game. Because they're just like me, fellow addicts looking for another hit. But the problem is that Inscryption is a very, very different drug. They refuse to look past the cards and never end up losing themselves in the story. I hesitate to expand on this point because I feel as if doing so would take away from the overall experience of any newcomer. The best advice I could give is to consider Inscryption as a storytelling game that utilizes the card battler genre as a medium to present a dark, gripping, and unpredictable narrative. So I guess I'll say it again, you know? Inscryption is seriously fucking good. But it's not the cure for your debilitating roguelike deck-building addiction. In fact, it's a much, much more dangerous substance.